All right, what's going on, everybody? Varric here. I wanted to do a video that kind of built off of yesterday's video. I think in talking about all those things, as far as identity goes for items, I do think that there were some more things I wanted to say that I either forgot about or just, didn't want to have too much in that video. So I wanted to do kind of a more in-depth talk about itemization as it comes to Diablo 4, and again, compared to Diablo 2. Same kind of disclaimer as yesterday, right? Like, I'm going to use statements that may seem general or may seem these like sweeping statements. I'm going to try my best not to talk about like we as the community or we as the people who are annoyed at Diablo 4, right? I'm going to keep this as best I can personal, right? This is my personal opinions. So if I do slip up or if I do use more of a generalized claim, I apologize. But yeah, I'm going to keep this. I realize this is all my opinion. And at the same time, like I want to make sure I'm being clear that I do think Diablo 4 is a good game, right? I would recommend it to my friends. I play it. I'm going to continue to play it. I'm going to keep giving it a try. So I think it's a good game. The reason I'm doing these videos is because I think it could be a great game. And, the more we talk about it, the more likely these things are to be improved. And you may not feel like it's an improvement. The things I'm talking about, you may think that like it's fine how it is, and the way you're talking about it seems worse. So, be that as it may, that is the way it is. I'm going to talk about my opinions. They may not agree with yours, but anyway, we'll have at it. So with no further ado, let's get into it. I am going to kind of recap what I talked about in the last video, just as like a full list of itemization here. So as you can see on my right, we will talk about these different points. First thing first is item power. So like I said in the last video, when you get an item to drop, when you see this unique, when you see this big upgrade, you want it to feel like an upgrade, right? You want to feel like what you're putting on is influential and impactful, and you want it to feel good. For me, playing as my barbarian, I never felt good about an item that dropped, right? I never really felt like, oh man, I'm like so much stronger now. It all was such a kind of minor scaling, minor differences. Sure, you may feel it a little bit, but you never really felt it. And that was a lost piece for me, and I feel like I wanted to be able to feel that sort of like power spike when I put on a new piece of gear. Again, my experiences as a barbarian, that's all there is to say about it. Someone did put on the post, put on my last post, they made a comment about like their druid, they got a new staff and it felt really good and influential and powerful, so cool. Again, experiences are always going to be different. So that was kind of it with item power. Like I wasn't really seeing it, I wasn't really feeling it, and in a game like this, which is so like focused around items, I think that you want to feel important, you want it to feel impactful, you want to feel good about a drop. Moving into like enchants and aspects, I think it really took away from me when, coming from a game like Diablo 2, which I know I kind of set as a standard, maybe an unfair standard, but again, like I said last video, like it is the way it is, right? That was the game that withstood the test of time. So we're going to use it as a standard. But either way, like talking about enchanting aspects, I want a piece, when a piece drops that like finally rolls those like incredible stats and that like GG item, I want it to feel so good. I want it to feel like a 1 in a million drop that like, man, that was awesome. And I think to get that, you have to go through those, 999,999, you know what I mean? You have to get those drops that were so close. You have to get those drops that were like not quite there, that maybe like, oh, if they only rolled one different stat, or if maybe this like one stat they rolled was just a little bit higher. I think that's what you really want. And I think by getting those near misses or those near hits, it just makes that hit so much sweeter. And that's where I think it fell short, because by being able to enchant, like getting intellect on a barbarian item, like you can just enchant it off, or not getting the right aspect, you can just replace it with one you had saved already, right? There's just so much tweaking you can do with gear that it never felt like really good to have something drop. It's like, okay, something dropped, it has potential, now let me go tinker with it and make it some awesome item for my build, right? You may like that. For me, I like the game. I like the RNG. I like the like 1 in a million drop that feels really good. So anyway, that's that on that. Again, my opinion, my preference. Next up is transmogging. I just include this because, again, For me, I think that customization of character should be more like MMO based, right? When I see an MMO, I think of like, okay, you are your character and you form this identity around it. But like for an ARPG or a dungeon crawler, I think it should be more like item focused, right? You have your levels, you have your items. It's just such an item heavy game that you want it to be important. And when you can transmog your item appearances off, it just takes away from it, right? Specifically like unique items. I mean, in D2, you knew what a unique was before you even had to inspect somebody, or not that you could, but you would see it on them and you'd be like, oh yeah, I know what that is, right? I knew it's like Tyrell's Might or something like that. Some awesome, unique sacred armor, and you just knew what it was. But you lose that here by being able to just transmog any appearance off. So that kind of, again, takes away from just item identity. So as much as I love transmogging, and I literally have like all my transmog tabs filled because I like transmogging, but does it have a place in a game like this? My opinion, no. But again, up to you to decide. Affixes as well, kind of moving into affixes in terms of like the gearing itself. For me, and again, I know this is because I'm still new to the game, and like it'll probably become more commonplace as I go through and learn it more. But there's just so many modifiers to affixes, right? Like when you look at a weapon, there's like bleeding enemies, injured enemies, vulnerable enemies, near far. Like I get that, but there's just so many different iterations, and it becomes a little too much. And I think that pruning down a lot of these skills could be more impactful for the game, and especially for like a newer player who's not used to these kind of games. There's like fortify, and there's barriers, and only certain classes get fortify, and like you have to like take a certain amount of damage for fortify to like even start. It's weird. I don't know. I'm not trying to say that like, oh, it's too hard for my little brain, right? It's just, I get that I'll learn it eventually, but by having so many different modifiers, you kind of just lose out on it. And it just becomes a little monotonous. Anyway, that's it for me. I don't know how exactly to put that into words, but again, it just felt a little too much, and I wanted to at least talk on it because, you feel a little overwhelmed, just all these different stats. Next up, I'll talk about is Enchanting versus Corrupting. So, I already talked about Enchanting, but another point to talk about with Enchanting is I never really felt like there was much of a risk reward, and I think that you need to have that high risk, high reward to get that good feeling or that great feeling, right? So like for something like Corrupting, you can see on the list here, like Corrupting in PD2, to kind of explain it quickly, you had the ability to corrupt an item. And what Corrupting can do is it just adds one more stat to the item. And that stat could be like something super impactful, like increased, more faster attack rate, or enhanced damage, or faster cast rate, or like cannot be frozen, something like some awesome ability, like +1 skills that is super influential. Or it could roll some like random thing that like you didn't care about. It wasn't very good for your gear, and like now you mess with the trade value and stuff like that. Like if you want to sell it, or this is where the risk comes in. You could destroy the item, or like it's called bricking, and it turns into some like random junk rare. But it was that high risk, high reward, because you get this like super awesome unique drop with rolls really strong, and like you're like, oh man, do I just use it or do I corrupt it to make it even better? Like it could potentially be great, it could potentially be like whatever, or it could just get destroyed. So there was that high risk, high reward, and that like sort of, your heart's bumping, like, do I do this or not? And that's where you get that investment in the game. And I felt like here, like, yeah, you can enchant, you get intellect and you enchant it off, and like maybe it's not the stat you're looking for, but it's probably better than intellect. I mean, I guess you can come into the idea of like, sure, like maybe you're enchanting off this like sort of decent stat that like maybe you roll something that is sort of less useful for your class, and but the real big feeling of that high risk, high reward wasn't really there for me, or at least like what I'm seeing. So I think that's another place that kind of falls short. I think you do need to have that risk to really make it feel impactful and make it feel powerful. Next up, blues and whites. I don't know about you, but other than like moving into a new difficulty level and like changing a non-secret piece to a sacred piece, I never really felt the need to pick up a blue or white item, right? Like magic or normal. They're just not, I don't think so. I mean, why pick them up other than like, again, there's like super quick upgrades that as soon as a sacred rare drops, or as soon as like a ancestral rare drops, you're going to just replace it anyway. And then they're just going to sit on the ground and never get picked up again. So that seemed weird to me. That seemed kind of like a bummer. Like, why even have them in the first place? Whereas something like, to compare it to D2, right? Magic items had unique rolls to them that rare items or unique items couldn't roll, right? Like you know, for instance, like a amulet could roll +3 summoning skills, or like, you know, magic gloves could roll +3 javelin and like 20% increase in attack speed. You know, javelins could roll like +6 javelin skills and like increased attack speed like that. So like rares could never roll that. So they were unique, right? They had a uniqueness to them that was important, and that you wanted to pick them up. And in the same instance, like even white items, even the normal items you used as Runewords, right? You could find crazy, like, you know, 3-socket, 4-socket Archon plate or mage plate, something that was like 15% ED, something that was really important to get, that it gave you a reason to want to pick those up. Or you can even for like money, you could sell the like the wands for like 35k gold. So you had a reason to pick stuff up, right? Nothing just like rotted on the ground for no reason. I mean, there's still stuff that rots on the ground, I get that, but you had at least a reason to pick that stuff up. Class specific gear. So kind of two parts to this. I don't like the fact that you can't trade a lot of stuff. Like, I get you can trade some things, but like when you get higher end and like bigger pieces, legendaries, whatever drop, you can't trade them off. And for people who like to play in groups, like group self-found, it's like not really a thing. Like, to get some awesome item that you have no use for, but like your buddy, like your best buddy has a use for, and be like, oh, sorry, man, it's like soulbound. That sucks. That kind of feels bad, and it takes away the sort of like camaraderie and the ability to play with other people that I think this game is already kind of lacking on, to a certain extent. Like, I realize that it has some things you could do, like world events, and you know, but I do think that for a game like this where you want to make it open world, you want players to interact with each other, to have that feature only makes you like not able to interact as much. And like, there's no trade, you can't really trade. You know, you can't trade an item, like a big powerful item, to somebody else. Like, and I realize the reasons they did that, I get it, but again, it just takes away. Second part of that discussion with, you know, I want to give an example of something that happened to me. I saw a circlet drop on the ground, and I went to pick it up because I was like, oh, cool, like a circlet. Like, I wonder what kind of stats they could roll, and, you know, maybe it'll be fun to wear, and it'll, you know, see what it looks like on my head. But when I picked up the circlet, it was like a regular barbarian helmet, some like giant helmet that I would, you know, and it bummed me out because the item just totally transformed, and that took me out of the world. Because like, when you have that class specific gear, you know, you're not able to mix and match. You're not able to like play around with the different item sets. Like, oh, maybe something that typically is used by sorceresses, like, but I'm a barbarian and I want to try a cool build out that, you know, they would usually use, so I'm going to wear one of their items, right? Like D2, you have the Warcry barbarian, you know, and you know, barbarians are used to wearing like strength gear and dex gear and like big items and big swinging weapons. But if you want to play Warcry, then now you have to look for like faster cast rate, plus to skills, like all these different things that normally a barbarian wouldn't use. And it's fun to have that sort of versatility, but by having such class specific gear, you kind of lose that. So that bothered me as well. Lack of set items and Runewords, like that kind of just speaks for itself. I don't know if that's something they plan to institute, but you know, when we're talking about identity of items, I think having those cool set pieces is important, and I think that kind of, again, immerses you more into the world, right? When you're thinking of like Immortal Kings or Talrashas or you know, they're not coming to me. Other sets like Griswolds, like every class sort of had that like unique set item that you could have that just made you feel more invested into that item, into that class. So again, that kind of bummed me out. And then Runewords, of course. Runewords, man, it bothers me so much. Like, Runewords were such an impactful addition to Diablo 2, and to have it been so successful and like have so many pieces of gear that were so influential in the game based around Runewords, I think it was really a blunder to not include them. I mean, they were just so important. I mean, I got it on my friggin' shirt for goodness sake, right? I have Jaith Burr, I have Enigma on my shirt. So to see that not implemented in the game was a bummer, and I don't even see a possibility for it to happen, right? They can only roll 2 sockets, so I don't know. I don't that kind of bummed me out. And that's getting into my next point with sockets. Like, you have 1 socket, you have 2 sockets, like that's it. I mean, I don't even think it's possible. I don't think there's room to put more sockets into it. Maybe you could do like smaller circles. Maybe they make that addition in the future. But 1 to 2, it's just kind of it leaves you wanting more, and so that kind of stinks. And uniform gear sizes, like when we're talking about wanting to be invested into this world and feel like we're immersed into it, that takes you out so much when you're able to take up the same amount of inventory space with a big old 2-handed weapon that a ring would take up, right? Like, these are the same inventory space. And sure, I can imagine how many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, right? 33 inventory spots. Yeah, sure, I can imagine having 33 rings in my bags, but I could have 33 2-handed weapons in my bags, right? That's not realistic. And I realize that it's a video game and whatever, you gotta make exceptions, but it again, taking away from item identity by not having a difference in what it looked like in your bags. And I think that inventory space was such an important thing in Diablo, but by being so important, you had to think about it, and you had to make good choices and smart choices of what you pick up and what you leave on the ground. But that's sort of taken away here by just having this like monotonous same size, one size fits all. So I didn't like that, and that bummed me out. Lastly, to end on, gems. I mean, gems, I know people have talked about this before. They're just boring. Right, you put a gem in an item, and then that's it. You're done. Right, it just sits in your inventory, and you accumulate them. And I know they're gonna do a gem tab, and that's nice. So you at least get them out of your inventory, but they're just sort of boring, right? They just put a stat on, and that's it, right? I mean, you think of like Diablo, where you could use gems to crafting. You could use gems for re-rolling circlets and charms and stuff like that. But they really only have 1 use. And again, sure, I know things could change, but to have so many good things from video games, even like Diablo 3, I mean, even that had some good things. To have all these good things that you've done before that you could have reinstituted in this game, but not, was just, I don't know. I don't think it was a good idea to not have some of these good things that have been so successful in the past, because it leaves you just being like, well, why didn't you include this, right? So yeah, I wish they did. I wish they do, right? So I'm still holding on to hope, and I do still hope it gets better, and they make good choices, and they listen to feedback in the community, and they maybe put into place some of these things, these improvements that could be made, but we'll see. So again, I want to just reiterate that I'm not done with the game. I'm still playing. I'll probably play PD2 more, but I'm holding on to hope, and I'm hoping this game gets even better, because like I said, it's a good game, but it could be a great game, and I want to see it be a great game, because I am a Diablo fan. I've been playing this game for 20 plus years, so I'd love to see it continue to get better, and them to make good choices. So we'll see. But that's it, guys. That's the video I wanted to do. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, like I said, I've been trying to do these videos, put out content, like, follow, share if you enjoy it. Feel free to comment, ask questions, voice your concerns, tell me I'm a big idiot. Just keep it respectful. I plead you, and I'll try to do the same. I try to be respectful in my comments and replies. But that's it. So anyway, I hope you all have a great day, and have a good night. Bye-bye.